What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we are going over my picks for the main card of UFC 314, Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes. And yeah, let's get right into it. So for the first fight on the main card, we got Dominic Reyes taking on Nikita Krylov. And unfortunately, Geoff Neal had to pull out of his bout against Carlos Prates. But I'm not going to complain too much because in my opinion, we got an objectively better fight from that. Carlos Prates versus Ian Garry. But that is a discussion for another video. When it comes to Krylov and Reyes, I don't really have much to say. I know Krylov is a favorite here, and based off of film and skill for skill, I would lean towards Krylov, but if I'm being honest, this seems like a layup / gimme for Dominic Reyes. Krylov has been out for 2 years, I think 2 years and 1 month. His last fight was in March of 2023. It is April of 2025, so yeah, that is over 2 years. And something I'm very, very adamant about on my channel. You can check all of my last videos. Time off from the ring doesn't help anybody. We just really haven't seen anybody benefit from it. Michael Chandler is a recent example that I could think of. I'm sure there's a million more if you really look back at it. Obviously, this is MMA, so anything can happen, but I am really leaning towards Reyes just because of that layoff. 2 years is a long time, and I don't see Krylov really bouncing back from that. I got Reyes via TKO late in the second round. We are on to the main meat of this main card. Every fight from here on out is an absolute banger. We got Bryce Mitchell versus John Silva. And I don't mean to sound dramatic here, but this fight is bigger than MMA. There's a lot on the line here. The stakes are too high. The reputation of MMA, the UFC, and every single fan is on the line for this fight. Yes, that includes you watching this video. Your reputation is on the line for this fight. Now, hear me out. What I'm referring to, obviously, is the Mitchell-Hitler situation. I'm not going to sit here and explain that whole situation, but as we know, Mitchell got on the bad side of a lot of people and on the good side of a lot of people as well. So, that being said, John Silva, who was antagonizing Mitchell for those comments, naturally got on the good side of a lot of people and got on the bad side of a lot of other kinds of people. Any comment section, any reply section, anything where people could comment about these two is a fucking war zone. You are gonna see some crazy shit if you go in those replies. So that's what I mean, our reputation is on the line. But let me explain more of some anecdotal evidence. In my friend group, I'm the only one who watches MMA, and I'm okay with that. But my buddies are casual fans. So they'll watch a Jones fight, they'll watch a Sugar Sean O'Malley fight, a McGregor fight, UFC 300, you know, the headline grabbing things. So naturally, when one of the biggest headlines across sports is Bryce Mitchell, UFC fighter, says Hitler was a good guy, he would love to go fishing. All my buddies are coming to ask me, hey, what's up with this? Why haven't they cut him yet? Blah, 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 blah. Obviously, this isn't good for me to hear as a UFC fan. You know, I've always gotten shit for watching half-naked guys fight in a cage, but this doesn't help it. So what I told them was, the way Dana White does things, he's not going to just cut Bryce Mitchell, which he would. But he's not just going to cut Bryce Mitchell. He's going to give him a real tough matchup and get every bit of juice out of that squeeze that is Bryce Mitchell. He's going to match Bryce Mitchell up against non-winnable matchups against some unknown Dagestani guy and feed Mitchell to the machine. But that's really not what happened here. Bryce Mitchell got a very winnable fight in John Silva. If Mitchell goes out there and wins via grapple fuck, I don't know what to tell my friends. To them, it looks like that the Hitler guy got rewarded in the UFC. So that's what I mean by everybody's reputation is on the line to a degree, because most casual fans know Mitchell from that. But at the same time, that's why they made this matchup. It's a high risk, high reward. If John Silva goes out there and knocks out Bryce Mitchell, the Hitler guy, via emphatic highlight reel KO, the fighting nerds fucking soar even more. Like I said though, this is a very winnable fight for Mitchell. It wasn't that long ago, I think it was late 2024, so less than 6 months ago, that John Silva got held down or constantly taken down by Charles Jourdain. Bryce Mitchell is an objectively better grappler than Charles Jourdain. Objectively. So, if Bryce Mitchell can consistently get John Silva down, I would imagine he can hold him there longer than what Charles Jourdain did. I do think it is a complete mismatch on the feet. I think that is completely in Silva's favor. Mitchell really won't have anything for him there unless he puts the fear of the takedown into Silva. But I think we do need to kind of ignore that Jourdain fight. Silva probably wasn't ready for Charles Jourdain to pull out all that grappling. Whereas for this Mitchell fight, I would imagine that's all he was really training for. I think I am going to have to go with John Silva on this, but I think it's like a 60-40 fight here, leaning towards Silva. All fights start on the feet, so I think Silva, it'll be easier for Silva to stuff takedowns and keep it on the feet than it would be for Bryce Mitchell to get a takedown and hold Silva down. So that's why I'm leaning towards Silva. But let's not be too surprised if Mitchell, quote-unquote, beats the odds and holds Silva down for 3 rounds. That being said, I got John Silva via KO late in the first. For the next fight, we got Yair Rodriguez taking on Patricio Pitbull in his UFC debut. And this is a very, very fascinating matchup. It could go any way. Obviously, Yair has a very funky style, throwing a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I think that'll give Pitbull a ton of issues, especially really, really early on when that fast UFC pace is set in. Pitbull hasn't seen anything like Yair striking in his career. Nothing like it. Yair has also been pretty active, whereas Pitbull's last fight was over a year ago. On top of that, he is also 37 years old, so naturally that's not a good combination, ring rust and older age versus a really slick, quick striker like Yair. That just doesn't bode well at all. Something that I do need to give Pitbull credit for is his wrestling. I do think his wrestling is better than Yair's. His takedowns are a lot more well-timed. He seems to be stronger, and dare I say, he probably has the more power. I could easily see a world where Yair overextends with a crazy shot, and Pitbull catches him with a nasty overhand right. Just something beautiful, good fundamentals, just a nasty overhand shot to really drop Yair. But it is kind of hard for me to really lean towards Pitbull. Yes, there is a lot of film on Pitbull that we could watch, but none of that was against competition that is really on that UFC level of what Yair has been fighting lately. I think Pitbull's path to victory here is really mixing it up, pushing Yair against the cage, taking him down, letting him back up, taking him down again, making it really dirty. But if he doesn't do that, I think Yair's going to style on him. Yair kind of needs a win. Pitbull also needs a win, but this is his debut, you know. He's just happy to be here, so to speak. So I think Yair is going to come in with a viciousness, really looking for a finish. The difference in height and stature is going to really benefit Yair's funky striking style. So I imagine Yair is going to style on him. It would be cool to see Pitbull win, but I think unfortunately we're just kind of past that time for him. So I'm going to go with Yair via unanimous decision or a 3rd round TKO, one of the two. Alright guys, we made it to the main event, and I am getting excited just by fucking looking at the names on here. We got Michael Chandler versus Paddy the Baddy Pimblett, and this is honestly a really close fight, which is kind of crazy to say. Imagine telling yourself that a few years ago, Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett in a close fight for the co-main event. You would have never guessed that. Pretty much, I think this fight is going to come down to whether Michael Chandler is still that guy. Not so much whether Paddy is that good. Don't get me wrong, I think Paddy is very, very good. His length and reach, along with submission skills, really makes him a threat to anybody. But the way he leaves his chin in the air, the way he swings, put that against a prime, explosive Michael Chandler, I just don't think I don't think he'd be getting out of the striking exchanges. We're going to be finding out if Michael Chandler is still that guy. I know I already said that, but we're really going to be finding out, was that last fight due to ring rust? And of course, I'm referring to the Chandler Oliveira fight. Was Chandler lacking there because of ring rust, or is it because, you know, he's faded? He's past his prime. His skills simply aren't there anymore. Personally speaking here, I don't think that's the case at all. I think it was a ring rust that really got Michael Chandler there. I don't think he thought he was going to come back. I think he thought that he was going to wait out until McGregor came back, but when it seemed like it was going to be further and further away, he decided to take that fight, or maybe he needed money. Either way, he didn't seem fully ready to be back in there, especially against a high-level talent like Charles Oliveira. Don't get me wrong, Paddy is really good. I just don't think he really has anything for a prime Chandler. But his submission skills is a true threat, even for a prime Chandler. A lot of people don't want to hear that, but he is a top-notch jiu-jitsu specialist. And given his length and stature and frame compared to Chandler's frame, I could easily see a reckless Chandler getting caught in a submission, because Paddy seems to be real flexible and really comfortable with pulling guard. So I would not be surprised if we see Chandler get caught in something crazy. I really do think we are going to find out if Scousers can get knocked out, because Paddy is going to get hit by Chandler early on. We're going to find that out very, very quickly. And I think both guys know that. They've kind of acknowledged as much. Paddy has said, you know, Scousers don't get knocked out even if you do hit me. And Chandler has said, well, Scousers have not been hit by the likes of me. So I am very interested to see how this fight goes. My notes are all over the place for this fight. I really do feel like it's 50-50. Because if it's a washed up Chandler, it's still a close fight. But I don't know. It really depends if Chandler fights to win or if he fights to entertain us like he always has. I'm going to go on a little rant here. I'm sorry. I don't know why most of you guys hate Michael Chandler, because I fucking love the guy. I don't give a fuck if he's a dirty fighter. I don't care, okay? Most of your favorite fighters are dirty fighters. That's just how it goes. And at this point, we all know you would be dumb not to do it. They don't call it anyways. So can we really be mad at him? I don't think so, because every time he comes out, he puts on legendary, memorable fights. We have to forgive some of those fish hook, finger in the fucking cage moments. Fuck all that. I am gonna have to lean towards Paddy. And I know I was just glazing Chandler so much, but I kind of talked myself out of it. I do think Chandler is past the hump. I don't think he's prime anymore. And I feel like Paddy is getting better and more confident every fight. This is the fight we're gonna find out on Paddy's ceiling. If Paddy goes out there and no diffs Chandler, give him a fucking title shot. I don't care. Or give him Armand or Charles. But if he goes out there and even wins a split decision, he's not ready for that yet. Maybe then we could see him fight a guy like Ilya. I do think Paddy's chin is going to get tested, and we're going to find out really early on whether he could take those shots. But as the fight goes on, I imagine Chandler will fade a little bit, and Paddy will kind of not get better, but at least stay the same. And that submission threat will always be there. Like I said, I could easily see Chandler getting reckless, getting into the heat of the moment, really hyping up the crowd, and then getting snagged up by something. A submission of some sorts from Paddy the Baddy. So, this fight is very 50-50 for me, but I am going to have to lean towards Paddy. I got Paddy via submission. I'm going to say in round 3. I really don't know, but I honestly don't see Michael Chandler finishing Paddy on the feet, and I don't see him finishing him on the ground either. So I got Paddy via submission round 3. Alright guys, we made it to the main event of UFC 314. Alexander Volkanovski taking on Diego Lopes, and this is an absolute banger of a fight. The whole future of the featherweight division is really hanging on this fight. A lot can happen from here. But let me disclose right now, I am a massive Volk fan. He's my favorite fighter. He was one of my first favorite fighters. So if the glaze becomes a little too much, cut me some slack, that would be why. Anyways, I am kind of sharing the same sentiment as the rest of the crowd kind of has here. I do think Lopes is going to be very, very, very dangerous in those first 2 rounds, but beyond that, it should be smooth sailing for Volk. Lopes is obviously a very, very explosive striker, has a lot of power in his hands, and is bigger than Volk, so naturally him in those crazy, chaotic exchanges early on could really give Volk a lot of problems. Assuming Volk is still the Volk of old, this shouldn't really be a problem for him. But the biggest issue with Volk that I've noticed, and a lot of these New Zealand, Australian fighters, is they're very dependent on having quick feet for their defense. It seems that they depend on not being there for the punch when it's going. And we've seen with Izzy and Volk as well in the past, that once you get older and you don't have that exact speed anymore, it has drastic consequences. And that's my fear here. I'm worried that Volk against the cage, or even Volk backing up, could easily get caught by a charging Lopes. Because like I said, maybe Volk isn't as fast as he once was. Maybe that centimeter or that inch of extra speed / distance isn't there anymore. And because of that, a guy like Lopes, who's more fresh, younger, seemingly, I don't want to say more fit, but more aggressive and faster in those early rounds, that could give him the win. We have seen Lopes gas out before, which is kind of where the sentiment comes from. It comes from that Ige fight. But to the defense of Lopes here, Lopes wasn't really ready to fight Ige, let alone at that weight. Lopes did a full weight cut and everything for that fight, and then had to jump up a weight class. So that could explain why his cardio wasn't there all the way, but we can't really bank on that. We got to go with what our eyes saw, and our eyes saw Diego Lopes gas out a little bit past the second round. Skill for skill, I think Volk is leagues above Lopes. And you know what? I felt the same way during the Topuria fight too. Volk was winning that. But deep down, I had even predicted, but deep down, I knew Topuria was going to knock him out. Just because of the turnaround and the style. Knowing Volk, just that one shot would be enough to get him out of there. And that's what we saw. But prior to that point, Volk was piecing Topuria up. It was moving in and out smooth until he couldn't when he was against the cage. And I think Lopes really needs to simulate that, get Volk against the cage, and then start the crazy exchange to really land the powerful shots, because we haven't seen Volk do too good against the cage. He can't back up the way he normally does in the center of the cage. I would hate to see Volk get knocked out again. That would be 3 straight losses in a row, all by finish. That just wouldn't be good. And if Lopes were to finish Volk, it's probably going to happen either in the first or second round. So that would be 3 fights in a row where he got finished within the first 2 rounds. That's not good at all. If we're being real, this is Volk's last chance to ever touch gold. If he loses here, especially if he gets finished, he's never fighting that upper echelon of fighters again. We're probably going to see him rematch Brian Ortega. If Volk wins this fight, it kind of puts the 145 division at a standstill, because he's beaten most of those guys coming up. Obviously, there's still Evlov, which would probably be the biggest fight for him there, and Aljo maybe, but it doesn't leave too many exciting matchups left to your imagination if Volk wins. If Diego Lopes wins, that just cracks the whole 145 division open, and it lights it on fucking fire. Because all of a sudden, all these guys that have lost to Volkanovski can suddenly get their shot again. Yair, I would say Ortega, but he has a pretty big viral loss to Lopes, that 1-2 clip that we've seen. But everyone else all of a sudden has a big shot to get to that title. They have a big chance to get to that title, I should say. So especially when you have a Bryce Mitchell and John Silva earlier on the card, if John Silva gets a disgusting knockout over Bryce Mitchell and calls out Diego Lopes, we might see a Silva versus Lopes for the title. Hell, even if Volk wins and Silva can call out Volk, we might see Volk versus Silva for the title. That would probably be a best case scenario for the UFC. I think it really does come down to whether Volk can avoid those big power shots early on, and I would be wrong not to bring up the layoff Volk has had. Yes, I am always adamant about how layoffs don't help anybody, but if it were to help anybody, maybe Volkanovski would be the case. Perhaps I'm being polite and I just like this guy too much and I don't want to speak anything into the universe, but who knows? Hopefully this layoff has really made him rejuvenated, and hopefully he comes in peak top form. I'm not ready to say that the Volk of old is completely gone. I'm not ready to say that. I don't think we've seen that yet. The only 2 guys he's lost to in the last 5-10 fucking years are the top 2 pound for pound greats right now. I don't know about you, but I don't rank Lopes as one of the top 2 pound for pound greats. So like I said, skill for skill, I don't think Lopes has anything for Volk, but that power is going to be a big issue for Volk. It really begs the question though, will Volk come out and mix it up this time? I know in an interview he mentioned that he's evolved his game, and I'm assuming that's what he means. We really saw it in the Yair fight, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see him go for some takedowns, but from what I've seen in interviews, it sounds like Lopes has really been grinding on his grappling as well. These first 2 rounds, it's 50-50 for me. Dare I say 60-40 to Lopes. I think Lopes could, quote-unquote, easily get the finish on Volkanovski. He just needs to push the pace and really corral Volk into a corner and let it fucking rip. I think he's going to get out of that exchange very happy with a nasty knockout. I just don't think he's going to do that. I think Volk is going to weaponize pace very well, as he normally does. And I don't know if Lopes will be able to have that power and that energy throughout the entirety of the 5 rounds. So I am going to have to go with Volk via TKO or unanimous decision. If Volk does TKO him, I think it'll be in the 3rd or 4th when Lopes is gassed out. I would probably say the 4th, but I won't be too surprised though if Lopes knocks Volkanovski the fuck out. It would hurt. It would break my heart, but quite frankly, I'm fine with that. That's why I got into this sport in the first place. The highs and lows, nothing beats it, man. Nothing beats it. That being said, I'm gonna have to go with Volkanovski TKO. 4th round, ground and pound TKO, I would assume. I don't know. I just really don't want to see Volk get knocked out again. I don't know. So nothing against Lopes here. I'm a big fan of Lopes too, but I just don't want to see Volk get knocked out again. So let's hope the universe is listening to me and they pick Volk to win. That is going to be it for today. Thanks for watching. As always, if you enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. What do you think of my picks? Are they casual? Are they not so casual? Who do you have winning what fights and why? And which of these fights is the main event for you? I'm seeing a lot of people say the co-main is the people's main event. People are saying Mitchell Silva is the people's main event. And people are just straight up saying the main event is the main event. So comment down below, which fight are you most excited for? And make sure to follow me over on Twitter. I talk shit and live tweet about the fights over there for every single card, even every single fight, the fights that I don't cover in my videos. So if you want to see me tweet about Chase Hooper and Jim Miller, follow me over there. But yeah, guys, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Tune in. I'll have my reaction review video out Sunday night. So subscribe, turn that notification bell, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.